that was a good question. All right, well, next one here. Yeah, on this one here, good. Okay, Ben, I'm answering your question. I don't want to. I don't want to get into these internet blah, blah, blah wars where people who generally agree struggle. But so here you go. This is from Ben, and I appreciate it. Starting Strength and Mark Ripito, I wonder what he could ask about, has doubled down on their kettlebell stance with their latest article, How to Use Kettlebells for Strength Training. And when you read the article, it says something along the lines, it's mostly useless. Okay. And then the author, Captain James Rogers, he's a Canadian, just makes a lot of jokes. The same kind of jokes we always, we make about all kinds of things. Don't forget, in my gym at the Pacific Barbell Club growing up, if you put collars on anything that wasn't approaching a big lift, you got made fun of, because if you can't control a 275 pound snatch, then, you're not tough enough. Now, if you did 305 and you used collars, that was fine. So we made fun of people for using collars. So everybody has their own little pecking order of what they think is stupid and what they don't. Trust me, I think a lot of things I see online are really stupid. Really, really, really stupid. I think a lot of people, in fact, a few of them I know, are risking their long-term health for pictures on Instagram. And they're going to pay a price down the line for, making certain decisions. And I don't think that's a good idea. That's me. So, Ben tells us, I've had a positive experience with Starting Strength, but it seems like kettlebells are a useful tool. I agree 100%. Ben, you and I are good. I think kettlebells are wonderful. And their condescending stance is confusing me and makes me question their motives and credibility. But are kettlebells just conditioning, or can I get big and strong with them? My young friend, yeah, you can get big and strong. You can get big and strong with a rock, man, if you took it serious. I've said many times, and Brett Jones used to quote me on this all the time. I said, if you put me in a situation where all I had was a 16 kilo kettlebell, and I took it seriously, in 6 weeks, I would come out of this prison or whatever it is, stronger, with better cardio and looking better. Which makes you wonder why I don't look better every 6 weeks. But yeah, I think kettlebells are really good. I sometimes think that one of the mistakes I've made in the last few years is not doing the kettlebell snatch as much as I used to. That's a regret of mine, because I think the kettlebell snatch, if you're built the way I'm built, maybe built the way I'm built in between my ears, the kettlebell snatch is a very good way for me to get certain benefits on the cardiovascular side without the pounding on my hips and knees. If you take double 48s and you press it for a set of 12, I'm going to tell people that you're strong, and I don't care. I don't care who or what you are. So yes, I absolutely think you can get big and strong. The strange thing about this particular, there's a couple things about. So when I went in to read the article that you sent me, Ben, so I'd know what you're talking about, the first article that popped up was an article about my hero, Lee James, and two of the best pictures I'd ever seen of him, both by Bruce Clemens at the 76 Olympics. And I modeled the way I dressed after Lee James. Everything that came out as article. If Lee James would have said to do 3 sets of 20 in the front squat, I'd have done 3 sets of 20 in the front squat as my workout the rest of my life. So there's a lot of good stuff at Starting Strength. This whole thing about their knock on the kettlebells, I get it, because it's kind of a fun way to brand yourself. We used to have a shirt at a high school I coached at. Girls play volleyball, boys play basketball, men wrestle. Now, I still think that's kind of funny. Now, I obviously couldn't say that today. I'd get, get, I don't know, whatever happens to one when they say something offensive nowadays, that would happen to us. But, I get it. When you're like I wrestled in high school, and, when you come out of a wrestling practice, it's kind of hard to think anybody else does on the campus is hard. I remember after wrestling, the football coaches, we're going to do this to you guys today. And those of us who had wrestled were like, no matter what we do for wind sprints or conditioning, it's not even as bad as 5 minutes of wrestling practice, So there's a certain branding. So if you're a high school wrestler, there's a certain branding you throw out there, like, we're wrestlers and we're better. And there's other sports that are like, yeah, that might be true, but we're rich and you're not. And there's another sport that says, well, we're X and you're Y. And we all do that. So I understand from a branding standpoint why they would do that. Listen, right now, as I'm telling you this and people are watching, people are going to fly over to that site and, ring the bell and read the articles and it's good for their business. And it makes sense. I was a little surprised when I read up about Captain James Rogers because he's a Canadian. And as you gentle listeners might know, is that I'm a half Canadian. Yeah, I know. And I'm just shocked that a fellow Canadian would say something negative. Now, obviously, the whole article he wrote is tongue-in-cheek. And I get it, because that's what you do. I mean, if you go back to the RKC forums of 2003, 2004, 2002, 2003, when it was much more of a us against them mentality, you would have seen articles like this, on the RKC forum. This really, there's us and there's you. And, is it the sheriff experiment that we all had to study in psychology about? That's just the way we humans do it. I believe there's an interesting movie called 2001: A Space Odyssey where you see it happening right in the beginning. I'll stop there. I understand it from a marketing perspective. I understand it, an us versus them. I understand that. But the essential issue I have is that why would anyone ever say any other modality has an issue? Because they're all good. No matter what you're doing right now is better than 19 out of 20 people, because most people don't exercise at all. Most people retire without enough money to survive very long. Most people don't floss. So I support anything you do, and I'll do my best to help you do it. I'm not going to throw stones at anybody. Well, that's enough for now. But it's a good question. But I'll just say this. If I would have had kettlebells as a youth, and I would have understood a few things about the Olympic lifts, I think I'd have been a lot better thrower. And I can't say that for the squat, and I can't say that for the bench press, because I did a ton of them. And, I never trained ever for the deadlift. And I pulled the biggest deadlift at a powerlifting meet without ever training it. Well, I've told that story before. But let's stay positive, and let's just keep in mind that kettlebells are pretty damn good. And I don't understand why you would even spend the time making jokes about it. Having said that, I'm as guilty as anybody for making fun of certain things. So it's the pot and the kettle here, okay? Thank you. Good question. It was a good question.